So you're going into this trial, and your son is facing a potential felony conviction for something that he supposedly did when he was 14, and you were clueless as to whether or not or which witnesses Carl would call. Is that correct?
Yes, I was. I was clueless. Yes.
Okay. Now, had most of your hearings preliminary? Had there been any kind of preliminary hearings before, and where were they? Where did they take place?
I did talk with Mr. Mong about a preliminary hearing, and he did request one, and I think it was Judge Brooks denied it.
Okay. Had you, and is there a separate juvenile courthouse? Is that separate from the main courthouse?
Yes.
And is it about maybe 2-3 miles apart?
I would say so.
Okay. Now, when you finally found out about the trial, where was the trial held?
It was It was downtown on 525 North Main Street.
Okay. Do you remember what floor it was held on?
On the 11th floor, and it was in Judge Fleetwood's courtroom.
Judge Fleetwood's courtroom. Is that a much smaller courtroom than the other courtrooms?
It's a very small courtroom.
Okay. And now is Judge Flagel's courtroom usually in the other courthouse? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay. So for some reason, they decided to have the trial on the 11th floor on the main courthouse. Now, how many jurors were there?
There was 24.
24. And you came and you brought 2 friends along. And what was the seating arrangements like when you entered the courtroom?
Well, my 2 friends were in the courtroom before the jurors arrived, and Mr. Mong and Mr. Sullivan literally chased them out of the courtroom, saying that the judge ordered them to be out of the courtroom and they could not be in there.
Did they give a reason why?
They just said that the courtroom was too small.
Okay. So what this really meant is, aside from the jurors and you and your son, the only people in the courtroom would have been the court reporter, who was married to the deputy district attorney, the court-appointed attorney, the prosecutor, Mr. Sullivan, and the judge. Is that basically correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, at the beginning of the trial, were you in the courtroom, or what was the situation?
No, Mr. Mong told my son and I to wait outside of the courtroom. It was in the back of the courtroom, in a little hallway, where we could not hear what was being said. And he did tell us that Mr. Sullivan would be giving his opening statements to the jurors. And so we waited. Mr. Mong would come back to us several times just to check on us and tell us it wasn't going to be too much longer.
Okay. Now, did he... possibly, I'm not an attorney, but I could understand why maybe he would not want your son in the courtroom, because maybe it would upset your son. But did he tell you why he didn't want you or your friends in the courtroom during the opening remarks?
No, he did not.
Okay. Okay, so then during the testimony during the first day, your 2 friends weren't there, but were your friends there for the second and the third day?
Yes, they were there the second day and the third day. But I do want to add that when Mr. Mong introduced my son to the jurors, he made reference to Dennis, the BTK, the serial killer.
Okay, now was that on the first day?
Yes.
Okay, and so...
That was Mr. Mong's opening statement.
What was the reference?
He was just referencing, just making a joke out of it, that he was talking about Dennis Rader, and he was laughing and saying that let's not confuse it.
Okay, so, okay, all right. Now, getting back to what happened on the second and third day, your witnesses were, your friends were there to observe, and I assume that is because there was only 12 jurors that came back on the second and third day and there was more chairs open?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, did Carl, the court-appointed attorney, call any witnesses on your son's behalf?
No, he did not.
And did your son testify on...
No, he did not.
And the second boy, who was the key witness, did not testify?
He wasn't even present.
He wasn't even present. So basically then, it was the girl's testimony that she had been assaulted by your son, and supposedly your son had, according to her testimony, driven the car around.
Yes, and she did admit that it was in the parking lot. The boys never left the parking lot.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that that she had been basically pulled out of the car and drug on the pavement. Was there any kind of forensic evidence, photos, or anything that maybe a police officer or possibly a hospital employee could testify as to her injuries?
She had a little scratch on her elbow, but whether that scratch came from that incident, we do not know.
Okay, so there was a photo of her scratch?
Yes, but when in the detective's interview with both the boys, the codependent didn't even know that the girl had fell, so he didn't know about the scratch.
Okay.
And then my son didn't realize that she had a problem because she was laughing and joking.
Okay. Now, and just so I understand the time frame here, how long after the young lady reported, on that Sunday that this happened, did they interview your son? How many days afterwards?
Well, I know they interviewed my son on this supposedly alleged incident happened on June the 5th, 2009, and I know that they went to his school and arrested him on Monday, which would have been, I think that would then be June the 8th.
Okay, so, all right, and then...
but as a mother, I was never notified.
Right, you were never, so you didn't even know about this?
No, I did not.
Okay. Now, did a police detective testify at the trial?
Yes, he did.
Okay. All right. So, basically, in a nutshell, do you feel that your son's court-appointed attorney was prepared going into the trial?
No.
Okay.
No, he was not, and neither did he prepare us.
Okay. Now, was there anything unusual that happened during the trial that, because we're going to get, in a minute, we're going to talk about what your court-appointed attorney did after the trial, but did anything stick out to you that just seemed a little unusual? I mean, when the jurors went away to make a decision, were you feeling pretty comfortable, or did it just seem absurd and that the jurors would
Well, I started to become concerned just because of statements that were being said and being made that were wrong, that Mr. Mong was not correcting them.
Okay.
A very good example of that is my son had agreed that he was not going to be witnessing, but he allowed the prosecutor to quote my son. He allowed the detective to quote my son as if he had said these things,
Okay.
which were untrue. But it also bothered us that the detective came to the courtroom with a picture, a photo